In the constant battle between us and germs, our greatest weapon has always been antibiotics. But here's the thing, it's not just one weapon, it's a whole arsenal. So today, we're going to dive into the incredibly clever strategies these drugs use to hunt down and take out the bacterial invaders that make us sick.
Okay, think back to the last time you were sick. Your doctor probably gave you a prescription for a very specific antibiotic. But did you ever stop and wonder, why this one? Why not something else? Well, I can tell you, it's definitely not a random choice. It's because different antibiotics are like specialized soldiers, and each one has a totally unique way of attacking the enemy.
So, how do we wage this war without causing any friendly fire? Well, the whole key is to exploit the crucial differences between our cells and bacterial cells. For example, bacteria have this protective outer wall that our cells just don't have. Their little internal protein factories called ribosomes are a completely different model than ours, and they have to make their own essential nutrients like folate, while we just get it from our food. And these differences, well, they make for the perfect targets.
So here's our battle plan for today. First, we'll meet the key players in our arsenal. Then we'll break down their three main attack strategies. We've got the wall breakers, the factory saboteurs, and the ones that cripple the blueprint. And finally, we'll look at how bacteria are fighting back in this never-ending battle. All right, let's meet the troops. To keep track of all the different types of antibiotics, we're going to use a simple little memory trick. Think of it as our field guide for figuring out who's who on the battlefield. And here it is. Antibiotics can protect the queens, men, servants, and guards. I know, it sounds a little silly, but trust me, the first letter of each of those words corresponds to a major class of antibiotic. This is our cast of characters for today, so let's get into what each of them actually does. Okay, our first strategy is just a direct, full-on assault. Some of our most effective antibiotics are what I like to call the wall breakers. They go right after the bacteria's #1 defense system, that rigid, protective cell wall that, conveniently for us, our own cells don't have. Now, this attack is just brilliantly simple. Imagine the bacterial cell wall is like a brick wall, right? The sugars are the bricks, and these little protein links are the mortar holding everything together. Wall breaker antibiotics come in and just dissolve that mortar. Once the wall is weakened, water rushes in, and with nothing to hold back the pressure, the bacterium literally bursts. Boom! It's an incredibly effective way to get the job done. So who are our wall breakers? Well, let's look back at our mnemonic. We've got penicillins for protect, cephalosporins for ken, and glycopeptides for guards. Now, you've all heard of penicillin, right? But drugs like cefazolin and the super powerful vancomycin all use this same wall-busting tactic. All right, so if you can't just break down the door, another great strategy is to shut down the power from the inside, and that brings us to our factory saboteurs. These antibiotics sneak past the outer defenses and just cripple the bacteria's ability to make essential proteins. They basically shut the whole operation down from within. The target here is a tiny little machine called the ribosome. It's the bacteria's protein factory. And here's the really clever part. Bacterial ribosomes are structurally different from our human ones. And that single crucial difference allows these antibiotics to shut down their factories while leaving ours completely alone. It's genius.
And even within this sabotage strategy, there are two different approaches. Some antibiotics basically throw a wrench into one part of the factory's assembly line, a piece called the 30S subunit. Others go after the other half, the 50S subunit. But either way, the result is the same. Protein production just grinds to a halt, and the bacterium can't survive.
So the saboteurs in our mnemonic are the aminoglycosides for antibiotics and tetracyclines for and both of those go after the 30S subunit. Then you've got the macrolides for men, and they target the 50S subunit. Some common examples you might have even heard of are gentamicin, doxycycline, and erythromycin.
Our third and final strategy is, well, it's maybe the most insidious of them all. Instead of attacking the walls or the factories, these drugs go straight for the command center. They corrupt the bacteria's most fundamental operating systems, its ability to copy its own DNA and to produce energy. They're crippling the very blueprint of life. So, how do they pull this off? Well, some drugs, like the quinolones, they literally stop the bacterial DNA from being able to unwind. And if it can't unwind, it can't be copied, which means the bacteria can't multiply. Simple as that. Others, like the sulfonamides, they block the production of folate. See, bacteria have to make their own folate to survive. We get ours from our diet, so blocking their production line is fatal for them, but totally harmless to us. And the last soldiers in our mnemonic are the quinolones for queens, which stop that DNA replication, and sulfaminomides for servants, which inhibit folate synthesis. Drugs like ciprofloxacin and sulfamethoxyl fall into this category, and they represent a really powerful attack on the bacteria's core functions.
But, and this is a huge but, this isn't a one-sided fight. For every brilliant strategy we develop, bacteria are constantly, and I mean constantly, evolving a counter-strategy. And that brings us to the absolutely critical challenge of antibiotic resistance. It's a biological arms race, and the enemy is learning very, very fast. Let's just take our first wall breaker, penicillin, as a quick case study. Its real power comes from a very specific part of its chemical structure called the beta-lactam ring. This ring is the thing that physically breaks those protein links in the bacterial cell wall. It is the key to the entire weapon.
So how did the bacteria fight back? Through crazy fast evolution, some of them developed a defensive enzyme called, get this, beta-lactamase. Its one and only job is to find and destroy penicillin's beta-lactam ring, making our weapon totally useless. So we responded with stronger drugs like methicillin. But the bacteria? They just evolved again, giving rise to superbugs like MRSA, which can resist even our backup defenses.
And this evolutionary arms race, where we build a weapon and they build a shield, that's exactly how a superbug like MRSA comes to be. It's a pretty sobering reminder that we are in a constant battle that demands newer and, frankly, smarter strategies all the time. So we've seen the incredible sophistication of our antibiotic arsenal, from the wall breakers to the factory saboteurs. But we've also seen just how relentlessly our enemy adapts. This ongoing evolution is the single biggest challenge we face, and it leaves us with a really critical question. As bacteria continue to outsmart even our best drugs, what's going to be the next weapon in our arsenal? The search for that answer is truly one of the most important missions in all of modern medicine. Thanks for watching.